Welcome. I'm Brad Miller, and I'm here with Jason Medford. And today we're going to talk about gratitude. It's not just something that you do one day in November, but gratitude is something really that I think is important for every day that you focus on.
Well, it is, and I think even if you're listening outside the U.S., right? I mean, November is when we have our Thanksgiving here, and I think we'll even talk about maybe a little bit of the difference between gratitude versus being thankful, which to me there is kind of a slight difference there. Um, so we're gonna have a great discussion today. I'm excited about this, Brad.
Yeah.
So I guess to start off, I know in one of the previous episodes we talked a lot, or I kept using the word gratitude, right? So you wrote it down. So how should we go about talking on this today, Brad?
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously, it was something that was on top of your mind, the
Yep.
fact that it came out quite a few times. So I guess a good place to start is, what does gratitude mean to you?
Yeah. So I mean, for me, gratitude, and we'll tie this in too, right? This is walking a spiritual path. So some of you might be like, what does gratitude have to do with spirituality? We're going to get into that. Okay. Because I'm going to explain it. But to me, I mean, gratitude is an emotion, right? It's an emotion that we can feel, right? So we can tell somebody we're thankful or thank you. But to me, gratitude is more the emotion and kind of love and gratitude that we feel for someone or something else, right? And I think we talked a little bit before too about kind of my look on spirituality. A lot of it has to do with connection, right? As well. And so um gratitude is an emotion that when we feel that, it's a higher vibe, higher frequency emotion. And when we are feeling that, we are connecting into higher source. Okay. And the more that we can do that, the more that we can feel that emotion and really like deeply feel it, we're in a sense expressing our love and our appreciation and connectedness to whatever else that it is. Right now, it can be a lot of different things, right? So I've got my cup of coffee here, right? And I am grateful for coffee. I like coffee, right? It does some great things for me, and I'd rather not be without it. Right now, again, I can't. I can be, but I am grateful for this cup of coffee, right? I'm grateful for the coffee, but you can even take it to another level, because this is one of the things that I try to do. Now, where did my coffee come from? Well, coffee comes from coffee beans, right? Somebody had to grow those coffee beans. Somebody harvested those coffee beans. Somebody ground them, shipped them around the world, and brought them to me, right? So that I can consume it. And so when you start to think about, and that's just again at the surface 3D level, right? There's a lot of people that went into my ability to drink my coffee today. Now, if we go even further back, the coffee bean is a plant, right? I am grateful for that plant that grew that fruit, that allows that fruit to be harvested and is giving something of itself, right? So that I can have the coffee. But that plant, if we keep going back further and further, that plant, right, is part of nature. That plant is planted in Mother Earth, Pachamama, however you want to refer to her. And there's rain, and there's sun, and there's minerals, and there are insects right, that are pollinating and doing all of these things so that that coffee bean can grow. So when I try to do this, at least a few times a day um, for certain things that are around me, right, and actually think about not just at a surface level gratitude, but to go back and at least place awareness for a few seconds on all of the beings, the people, the things, right, that brought me whatever it was that I feel grateful for. And as I focus myself on that, as I try to get into that that moment, kind of mindfulness, if you will, that some people like to call it, where I'm focusing just on that and placing my full awareness on that, even if it's only for a few seconds, I feel different, right? I feel more connected. I feel a lot of times those little tingles or the other things that we end up getting a lot of times when we feel that connection or we have universe kind of coming through us. And so I'll stop there because at first, because I know you've been like writing down like a madman. But that's when I'm talking about gratitude, that's an example, right? But there's so many things around us that we can be grateful for, right? And just like, all of you that are listening, I'm sure you know some people that aren't grateful. And how much do you like being around people who aren't grateful for you or aren't grateful for your friendship, right? It kind of sucks. So think about all of the things that are around you, right, that would hope you would be grateful for them. They will take care of you as you take care of them, as you express gratitude and thanks for them and what they're doing to serve you. You're serving them, you're treating them with respect as well, you're acknowledging that they are there, right? And so even like another simple example, I sit out on my back patio a lot, and there's one particular mandarin tree that I have that's kind of right in front of me, and I sit there and I look at that tree and I'm grateful for the tree for a lot of different reasons, right? So I kind of talk to the tree and say, oh my, you're looking very beautiful today, right? Look at all the amazing fruit that you put out there. And everything is a connection and a cycle. And the more that you can start to see this from a spiritual standpoint, the more you'll understand and see that we are all connected as people, as things as well. And so I remember, this tree produces a lot of fruit. And when a tree produces a lot of fruit, the branches hang down, right? Because it's heavy, right? And so my wife was saying, it's kind of done. You should probably go cut off the fruit, right? So that it's not weighed down anymore because it's kind of the end of the season. I'm like, well, if we weren't here, the tree would do something with the fruit, right? So I'm just going to leave it because it knows what needs to happen. It's going to drop the fruit. And sometimes I'm sitting out there and it's like bonk, right? And you look over and another one dropped off the tree. And so just as an experiment, I haven't done any, I didn't clear it off. And funny enough, this last week, there have been some little tiny birds that have come to my mandarin tree. And you know what they're doing? They're pecking at the fruit and they're eating it on the tree. So here it is, again, that I could have inserted myself and, just been an ignorant human. But instead, those birds are helping the tree and the tree is helping the birds and the tree and the birds are helping me because the birds make me happy when I see them. They're little cute, these little cute kind of like yellow and green. I don't know if they're little finches or what they are, but they're cute and they've got a nice little chirp, right? And it makes me happy to look at the tree and to think again, just like I did with the coffee bean, of all the things that go into it. When I water the tree, when I tell the tree that I love it and it looks beautiful today, right? I'm serving and helping and connecting myself at a spiritual level with something else around me.
I mean, well, I
That
think that's
probably was
the
not where
episode
you thought I
today.
was going to go.
I mean, that's the episode for today, guys. Thanks for listening. I mean, that Jason's pretty much just knocked that all out of the ballpark today. Um, but now one thing, I mean, you talked about what gratitude is, and a word that you used was the word appreciation. And that I think is a kind of a good way to think about it, is being in gratitude is just being able to appreciate things. Whether it is the beauty of the mandarin tree in your backyard, whether it is the work that the people do who planted the coffee plants or who harvested them, who ground the beans into the coffee that you have, or packaged it, or whatever they be, part of that stuff. Which leads then into what I think was another really big idea that you talked about here, is that the concept of interconnectedness and how everything is ultimately connected. Something that you may think is very separate, detached, kind of on its own. Really, if you kind of get down to it and you work through through it, you can see that we're all connected in some way. Like you could say, like, how am I connected with the little yellow and green birds that I see flying around? Well, the mandarin trees in my backyard, and I watch the mandarin tree and I talk with it and I appreciate it for what it does, and I eat the fruit off the tree. And the mandarin tree, works with the birds to help relieve the weight and the burden off of the tree, and the fruits that you don't get to. And I mean, all these things, you can see where it kind of goes back. And I think that's a really a really beautiful way of looking at things. And it's kind of fundamental, really, I think, to the idea of spirituality. Just the fact that everything is interconnected. um from everyone out there is connected in some way, how we're connected to nature, and kind of the idea that the actions that you have, which reverse go back to your thoughts and your feelings and all that kind of stuff that you might have an impact elsewhere on other things out there besides just yourself. You get out there and you would pluck those mandarins off that tree. Well, that's not just impacting you, that action, that's impacting the tree. It might impact the tree thinking that, well, it's now time to make more fruit, or what's going on with the tree, what's going on with my fruit, or who knows. It would impact the birds are using the mandarins on there for food, so then the birds would not have that source of food. And who knows where down the food cycle that may lead if you get less birds now because they're not surviving, because they're not getting mandarins to eat. The little bugs that they also eat now grow and multiply. And I mean, it's the idea of kind of the butterfly flapping its wings, and the effects that they have, even just small little things like going out and trimming some mandarins off of a tree, or plucking them off there. And yeah, I think that's a really big idea that, that probably gets its own episode at some point. I mean, we can really
Well,
deep dive into
because
that.
yeah, because we can go a lot deeper on that. And actually, as you were talking, it kind of brought up two other points that I think should be made. Because, like you said, Brad referred to the old butterfly thing, right? And so some of you have heard that before, right? If a butterfly flaps its wings in the jungle, does it cause a hurricane or something somewhere else, right? The flapping of that. Sometimes it may, sometimes it may not, right? But again, the whole fact that we are all connected is real. Okay. And so one of the reasons why I think gratitude is so important, and why I try to practice it so much, is there's a lot of you that are listening that probably are sitting there going, you know what, there's a lot of really negative shit in the world. There's some really bad people doing some bad things. There's a lot of evil in the world. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety in the world. And there is, right? And how do we combat that? By being happy and being grateful. because just like those other people are putting out some of that, what a lot of people would call negative energy, right? I don't necessarily like that term because with duality, there has to be both sides of everything for balance. But if there's going to be balance, somebody has to be putting out the gratitude and the love and the happiness. That's us, right? And so I try to tell people this, and I think most of the time it goes way over their head. But, Gandhi made some comment like, be the change you want to see in the world, right? And so by being that way, you are actually putting positive energy out there that is balancing and offsetting some of the other things. And so literally, if everybody that listens to this, if everybody in the world spent 2 minutes, 5 minutes a day feeling grateful, feeling love, feeling connected to things around them, this world would transform like you would not believe. It's something very, very simple, but that act does more than you even realize, right? So to me, that's one reason why it's so important. The other thing too, kind of back to the interconnectedness, is, right now my light being is housed in this human meat suit, right? But it's bigger than my meat suit, right? And I am no different than that gnat or that bird or that tree, right? I am no better than those other things. I think a lot of times as humans, right, we tend to believe that, well, I'm a conscious being, and so I'm better than dogs, or I'm better than that tree, and I can just do whatever I want to, right? Because I'm the Lord and dominion of this world. Well, no, you're not. And the more that we can realize and see how we are connected, and not have the ego to think I'm any better or I'm any different. We all just have different roles to play, and we're all at different points, right? But it takes all of us to complete the greater of why we're here on this earth, right? And so to me, another reason for gratitude and for being grateful for what seems like something that is insignificant is stripping away some of that ego that is one of the biggest enemies that we have, that we're trying to overcome in this world, right? And so kind of back to the, that example of the tree that I just shared with you. One of my friends is big into nature and does talk to the trees and connects with them much more than I do. They talk back, right? I talk to the trees, but my friend, the trees talk back to her, right? And so, one of the trees that's on her property, one time the tree said, "Can you bring me some carrots?" And right, 3D, she's like, "What the hell? Why would a tree want carrots?" Right? But it's like, "Can you just bring me some carrots?" So she went and took carrots and put some carrots down under the tree. The deer came and ate the carrots. Now, there was some connection. There was some reason that the deer and the tree needed to connect, right? By my friend putting the carrots down, the deer came. The deer did whatever they needed to. It benefited the tree somehow as well, right? The deer probably did something that benefited the tree, and the tree did something to benefit the deer, and all of it benefited my friend as well, right? Another time, the tree said, "Bring me honey." And again, it's like, why would a tree want honey? But she poured some honey down at the base of the tree. And what do you think attracts from honey is ants, right? And so again, for the same reason, the tree knew, and understood the connectedness of it, right? And so by my friend actually connecting with the tree, her serving the tree by bringing carrots and by bringing honey, right? Allowed, because the tree is serving her all the time. The tree is giving her oxygen, is giving her shade, it's doing all these things. The tree is just being a tree, and she's benefiting from it. But do you see how beautiful it is when we start serving and we start being grateful and we start thinking about all of these other things around us in a different way? Because it truly is beautiful when we serve and we get served, right? And that's a big part of, to me, spirituality, is it's that connectedness and that love and that understanding. It's not just going under a tree and be like, fucking tree, whatever, right? I mean, it's like, no, it's being connected to everything, right? Is a big part of it. Now, that's not what's in the religions and everything else, but how much different would you feel, right? How much better would your life be if you started just being grateful for a few little things, even if it's only a few seconds a day? I know for my life, it makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
Well, I think we've probably lost most of the listeners we have when we start talking about talking trees. But
Hey, talking
as
trees exist, right? Just go. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. If you don't believe that trees talk, right? There's a bunch of talking trees in Lord of the Rings.
those are Ents,
Ants.
but
Uh-huh.
which is different than ants. The tree
Yep.
and the honey, ants and ent. We need to make sure that we're clear about that. Yeah, I mean, kind of going back to where we started, back first episodes talking about what exactly is spirituality. And for me, it's the idea that there's something more than us. And I think you really hit into that, talking about the idea of interconnectivity with everything. It's not just us sitting under that tree, it's us and the connection that we have with the tree and with the grass under our feet and with the ground under that supporting us and with the wind blowing and rattling the leaves and the deer coming and presumably you know defecating on the ground, which and fertilizing and whatever the deer needs to do, and all those things. It's just the idea of all these parts all work together in harmony, and rather than this human centric model, which I think most of the world takes, most of the religion, a lot of the religions I should say, have this human centric model. It's all about us and what we do, and this is more of a, how are we relating to the things around us for the mutual benefit of everything. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this podcast, was because we wanted to be able to help others, to help with this connectivity, to spread this idea of gratitude and things like that out there. You talked about the light and the dark, and or whatever you want. You were saying about negative energy, and I was thinking about the empire and the dark side. There's the idea of balance and things like that, and the more of us that practice gratitude and things like that, the better off the world would be, the changes that we'd be able to see. And that's really what we're trying to do here with this podcast,
Yeah.
is make people get rid of some of the stigmas around these ideas, people to get a lot of the fears that I can't be doing this, or this is not acceptable, or I can't let anybody else know about these type of things that I have in my head, to let people know it's okay to go and talk to your trees.
Mhm. Well, and I think too with it, because again, it's we're all different, right? We're all drawn to certain things, right? And there's no one right or wrong way. Like I said, I mean, my friend, she's amazing when it comes to nature, right? I am grateful for nature, and I express, right, to nature through my thoughts, sometimes out loud. Sometimes I sing to them or play music to them, right? Because music is one of my things. I'm very connected and get a lot of things through music, but that's just me, right? Everybody's different. You may be different as well, and it's okay. It doesn't mean that if the trees don't talk back to you, that anything is wrong with you. Because I will tell you, the trees don't talk back to me right now. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But a lot of it is just kind of bringing up some of the different things that are out there, some of the different ways that Brad and I, connect and are going along our journey, some of the things that we've learned from other people as well. Because there's no one right or wrong way, but the principle or the information about gratitude and connectiveness, anybody can do. Anybody can do, right? Even if it's just for a few seconds or a few minutes every day. And that will start to help you feel more connected to the universe, right? Which is the source of the truth and spirituality, right?
Yeah, so that's I think a really good lead into the idea of how you practice gratitude and the importance of it. And you talked about, the little things, the trees, the sitting there and being thankful for things around you. I know and if the idea that everyone does something differently, I have a morning gratitude practice that I do. So one of the first things I do in the morning when I sit down at my desk before I open up my computer or I start, scrolling through my phone or whatever like that, I've got a little journal that I have, and I write down every morning 3 things I'm grateful for. And one of the real big benefits that I've witnessed from that is that I then kind of start the day off in the mindset of gratitude. So my thoughts are on being grateful for things, and sometimes it's very easy to come up with 3 things I'm grateful for. If let's say I just got a new client coming in, I could, maybe I'm grateful for the new client that came to me that I'm able to help, or if I just got a paid, a client sent in a payment, I'm grateful for the payment that came in because that money now allows me to do things with that to pay, my bills and other things that need to be able to do with money. So sometimes things are really easy like that. Sometimes they're more difficult to come up with ideas for things I'm grateful for. Um, you know,
Well, as you were saying that too, the thought kind of came to me as well. And we were talking a little bit about this before we hit record. Is what if you could be grateful for the things you'd rather not have in your life, like challenges, right? Because it's easy to be grateful for certain things, right? Because it's like, oh, hey, they make us happy, right? In a 3D way. But can we be grateful for the challenges? Can we be grateful for the heartache, for the pain, right? That also comes because, again, everything is connected. And usually those things have to come into our lives for us to up level, to get to the next phase, right? And I know for me, I'm going through some different personal things. We're all going through different personal things at different times, right? But I think, a lot of times it's like, I don't like to cause people pain, right? That's not who I am, but I realize, and I'm grateful that sometimes we have to destroy before we can create. Sometimes we have to go through pain before we can feel that elation, right? And so can we also start to learn to be grateful for the tough times, for the things we'd rather not go through, because we know it's those things that help us get to where we really want to be. And I'll be honest, everybody, I sometimes I have a hard time doing that too, right? but
yeah, no, it's not easy.
I'm working on that as well, because it's, again, the more that we can do that. And again, some people are going to be further along than others who are listening to this. The 3 things in the journal every day, that's a great practice. Another one that I've been taught that I do is being grateful for water. I drink a lot of water. Our body is 70% water. Without water, we would all be dead, right? There are literally like 1 billion people in the world, 1 billion people that don't have access to clean drinking water. That's a lot of people, right? So every day when I fill up my container, I feel gratitude that I have clean water. And again, try to go through some of those things of what that water is doing to help hydrate myself, to help clear out impurities and other things in my physical body as well. It also has an energetic cleansing thing, and we'll probably talk about that in other episodes as well. But so many ways, and that's something that everybody who's listening, you're drinking water every day, right? Or you're dead. So there's another simple kind of practice to do as well. I mean, if you're not drinking just water, then come on, people. You need to be drinking some water by itself. Don't consume all your liquids in coffee or soda or anything else. But it's interesting, and like I said, but pick whatever resonates for you, right? Just find something to be grateful for every day.
Yeah, and it's easy to do things that are happy, that are good, that are nice and exciting, and it's tougher to do the neutral things like the water, that it's just kind of there. It can be really challenging sometimes to be thankful, to be grateful for the quote unquote bad things that happen to our lives. People getting sick, how is that a great thing? Well, what are the lessons? What are you learning about yourself, about others, because of this? What opportunities have you received because of this? And again, that's going to be a whole nother episode all by itself. But that's, like you said, everyone's kind of on their different kind of path for this part. And that's kind of where I said every morning, that's where I kind of start, is I try to think of what it is that I be grateful for. And most of the time it's good, happy things. Those are the easy ones. Sometimes it's tougher to come up with things, or sometimes one of the things I try to do is push myself to come up with some of the quote unquote bad things that I'm grateful for and how are they benefiting me. And that's something that I'm really working on just in general, not even just for the gratitude journal part, but just when something happens to me that maybe is less than desirable, at first glance, what is the benefit that I'm receiving from this? What are the lessons that I'm learning from this? And that is gratitude. Like, that's being grateful for things that I'm being able to learn. I've had some difficulties with my daughter getting her up in the morning. She just wants to lay there, and I have to come in a couple different times and almost drag her out of bed. And then she's kind of grumpy, and I have to really push her to get her dressed, and then eating breakfast and getting out the door. Like, it's a whole ordeal, and it's definitely not the way that I would choose necessarily to wake up every morning and have to deal with. But the question I ask myself is, what are the lessons that I'm getting from this? What are the benefits that I get by experiencing and going through this? And one of the big ones that my daughter teaches me every single day is patience, is getting over my ego, which again, that's something that we could talk about at some point, and really focusing on just being patient. What's the big hurry? Yes, the bus comes a certain time, but there's no reason to get worked up about things. Sometimes she starts getting really frustrated or really worked up as we get closer. I'm like, the bus is going to be here in 5 minutes. You better get moving. You're not dressed yet. And she gets all worried and flustered and stuff like that. And I have to kind of remind her, take a breath. you're fine. But it's lessons like that, things like that, that I pick up, that are this gratitude that I get to experience. And without my daughter, I maybe would never learn these things. Um, and so
Well,
that's something that I'm personally grateful for.
and I think that's a great example that probably everybody who's listening, it might not be getting a kid up for school, right? A lot of people it might be. But, there are a lot of things in our life that help us learn patience, right? And patience is a virtue. And living a virtuous life is what we should be doing, right? So, but how can we be that way if we don't learn how to be patient? And so, again, most parents, like, Brad, you could sit there and you could be annoyed with her every day. You could yell at her, you could scream at her, you could, drag her out of bed. You could, in the old days, beat her, right? Uh, not
Old
advocating
days,
that the old
yesterday,
days, yeah,
you know,
whatever, right?
yeah,
I don't know.
right.
I was in the generation that we got spanked when I was a little kid, right? I mean, that was just normal. But there's all those ways that you could do it, that you could approach it. But when you do that, you're depleting your power, right? You're giving into some of those other emotions, and you're kind of draining yourself down, spiritually speaking, right? And a lot of people, that's how we go through our day, right? And each of these little things that are aggravants or annoyances just start chipping away at it, and by the end of the day, we're just exhausted, right? But if you just look at it like Brad was talking about, of, hey, this is an opportunity for me to learn patience. I'm grateful for it, right? It's helping me to be a better dad. It's helping me to teach my daughter, right? And to be a good father that way, to help her become more responsible, but also, someday when she has children, if she has children, right, that she's seen your example, and she's going to carry that on with her children as well, right? Um, there's so much, behind that you can be grateful for, and I think it's a perfect example too of just a little mindset shift of taking that attitude of gratitude, instead of, oh man, I got to get my daughter up again. I hate it when I have to do that because I feel so right. Woohoo, I get to go wake her up today. Another opportunity to practice patience.
Okay, now I don't think there's any parent that comes thinking that, like, we're not going to be like, woohoo, it's patience. No, but it's
But what if we
it.
could, right? I know, I mean, I'm kind of trying to be funny about it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's that would actually be a much better way to approach it than it would be to come in and be like, get out of bed. I'm gonna throw you out of the bed, like, you know. So maybe I'll try that tomorrow morning and see how that works. So I come in and um
I'm so excited to go wake up my daughter. Da, 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 da.
I
don't know.
know what oh just no.
I
I
know, I
don't
know, I know. That's actually my morning playlist. But anyway, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that kind of stuff in a different episode too.
that is another episode. But all right, well, anything else on gratitude? I know this was a big topic and a really big one for you, but anything else you want to kind of talk about here before we wrap up?
I think we gave people a lot to think about. And I know when you were saying, hey, let's talk about gratitude today, because you mentioned it. I don't know if you realized where I was going to go with it, but I think again, there's some very basic, simple things that if people will just start doing a couple of these simple things every day for a few seconds or a few minutes, they will start to notice, not just in their spiritual involvement, but also in their psychological outlook, mental, emotional outlook in life as well. And gratitude is one of those. And I have seen it in myself. I've seen it in people that I've coached, family members, other people like that. When people can start to feel more gratitude, express more gratitude, their lives change, right? Now, the circumstances might not change. And bad stuff, quote unquote, bad stuff may still happen, but they get through it so much quicker as well. And all of these things that we're talking about are practices, exercises, whatever you want to call it. The first time you do it, it's going to be hard. The second time, it's going to be easier. Third time, it's easier, right? But as we start making some of these practices more of a habit, it becomes easier and easier to get through some of these things, right? And it's only because we've done kind of our spiritual or emotional push-ups by going through it. But you can't develop those muscles unless you go through it.
Have an attitude of gratitude. That might be the topic for the title here for this episode here.
Oh, it might be, since I wrote it down. An attitude of gratitude. And it rhymes too, because I'm a poet and nobody knew it.
I mean, I knew it, but
You knew it, but yeah.
Now everyone else does as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, Jason, I am very grateful for you. And I'm also grateful for everyone out there who stuck around and listens to us. Thank you guys. Appreciate it again for listening. And hopefully we will catch you guys on the next episode.
We'll see you, everybody. Thanks.